it's not fair that you have to explain yourself just because you're Muslim, because some idiots are doing a terror act. It's not fair that you're blaming a whole population for it.
Those who were butchered by ISIS terrorists over the weekend were not Americans. They were not Muslim non-believers, and they were not of the Jewish faith. What has lost on many people is that these people were Christians, Coptic Christians, a religion that is believed to have started around AD 42. And the Egyptian Coptics form the largest Christian community in the Middle East, accounting for 10% of the population. With an estimated 6 to 11 million members, it is no small religion, but one that is certainly persecuted to a level of others that perhaps receive more unwanted publicity. Our guest is founder and president of the Iraqi Christian Relief Council. She understands the plight of those we speak of around the world, as she was smuggled into Switzerland in 1989 to avoid religious persecution in her native Iran. Juliana Taimoorazy joins us once again. Juliana, it's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you for having me on again, Ed.
I think you've heard me talk a little bit about this, and people hear Coptic Christians being executed in Libya by ISIS, and I think many people raise an eyebrow. They go, Christians, we never would have thought of something like that. It is a religion that seems to go very much under the radar when it comes to discussing the persecution of this faith by so many others, especially those in Islam, correct?
Yes, Ed, we have come under persecution since the rise of Islam. The Assyrian Christians, who along with Coptic Christians are the two original nations that converted to Christianity, we both have been slaughtered from the beginning. And what you are seeing today throughout the Western countries is really nothing new to us as Christians in the Middle East, throughout the Middle East. What you're seeing today is exactly the same blueprint that we have seen for the last 1400 years. I am glad that this is getting so much attention now, as before our plight had gone completely unnoticed.
Why do you think that is? Because as I was looking, and I know some of the stories, but again, I don't know them all, so I did a little research here and found out much more about what is happening here. And the Coptic Christians, there's even a story today, actually came out just a few days ago, talks about Coptic Christians being persecuted in Cambodia by Vietnamese authorities. This is not as if it's in one portion of the world. This is global. Why is it that the Coptics have drawn so much negative attention, not just from Islam, as you pointed out, but from others, such as the government of Vietnam?
I really believe that this is a Christian issue. I really believe that, because there's massacres that are happening in the Philippines that have gone unnoticed. For example, when the Pope had visited the Philippines, there were about 40 to 45 police officers and even priests that were killed in the hands of Muslim Filipinos. And so this, I believe, is a Christian, it's a religious issue. Whatever they've done in Cambodia, I'm not aware of that, unfortunately. But this is going on because we are, even though we're called people of the book in the Islamic religion, we are considered infidels at the same time. And because these Islamist extremists want to create a caliphate throughout the world, they will kill even their own if they don't agree with their form of Sharia law. This is why we have to unite with Jews. We as Christians have to unite with moderate Muslims. For example, to me as a person, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is a hero. Many of you know who Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is, who is a Muslim, but he's an American as well, and he stands up to this. So we have to unite with moderate Muslim world to defeat this, as we've seen President al-Sisi has done so by striking immediately. We saw that happening in Jordan. King Abdullah started the airstrikes right away as well. So we as a superpower in the world must, unfortunately I have to say, we must follow their leads, because our administration is not leading today.
Okay, this is a difficult question, I know, but this is one that comes up right away, because we don't hear a lot about the persecution of Christians, much less even Coptic Christians. There are some people who would say that, simply put, the video itself released by ISIS was so violent in its nature, and that it was 21 people. It wasn't just a couple, it was 21, that this is what would launch governments to get involved. Not that it was Coptic Christians, but that it is 21 people. You will have to admit, and you've just pointed this out as well, there's 100 million Christians around the world today. There is certainly an overwhelming majority of atrocities being committed by Muslims against these Christians. It's gone unnoticed, Juliana. It simply goes by the board and no one cares unless it's big news.
Exactly, and I believe that is because of the subliminal anti-Christian sentiment that is rampant around in the American and Western media.
Why is that, Juliana? Why? Why are people so against Christians?
Because for example, because America is a land of a melting pot, a large melting pot, and we're afraid of offending the other individual, and we believe in people being American first, but then we fail to know when people come here, not everybody is a lover of America and the way of life and the freedom that we have here. And these extremists, when they come to the United States, and believe me, the borders are wide open for them, they want to create their caliphate in the United States. As you know, there are no-go zones in Dearborn, Michigan, just as they are in France, for example.
Well,
So
there
we
are
have to
what
be
they
really
call
vigilant.
no-go zones. It is fair to say there are police authorities there who don't agree with that. They don't call them no-go zones. And certainly there are people in France who've actually said the same thing. So it is fair to say that what you're talking about is disputed by some people. But please continue.
Yes, it is disputed. However, when two Christian men were beaten really badly in those areas, quote-unquote no-go zones in Dearborn, the police wasn't able to do anything there. So that, to me, that is really not the American way of life that we're used to. That is entirely changing, and we have to be aware of that. But, you know, these individuals, these 21 Coptic Christians that were beheaded, they were poor fishermen that couldn't find jobs in Egypt, and they came to work in Libya. So these are not activists, these are not people that have risen against Islam, these are poor Christians. And you know, they said that the terrorist on video, at some point he said, the same sea that you dumped the body of Osama bin Laden in now is going to be mixed with the blood of Christians.
So
and
I only have a few
warned
seconds left,
Rome
Juliana.
from the next attack.
I only have about 45 seconds left. What then would you want other faiths and other governments to do in order to try and stem this tide?
We have to call it what it is. We have to call it Islamist extremism. And we have to come together, unite with one another, and then, you know, maybe it requires some boots on the ground. Airstrikes might be really more, it has to be more aggressive. And also, we should arm Christian military in Iraq, for example, so they can join forces with the Kurdish militia and the Iraqi government, Iraqi military, to defend their own. Why shouldn't Christians have the right to defend themselves?
It certainly is something that is always going, for some reason, under the table. It goes unwatched many times, but this one hopefully has brought some attention to the fact that there are Christians around the world that are being persecuted, sometimes at a much greater rate than other religions as well. Juliana Taimoorazy, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon, hopefully under better conditions.
Thank you for having me on.
All right.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank
My
you.
pleasure. The Amazon global takeover would seem to be on hold for the moment, and in Indiana, maybe there needs to be a hold put on a plan that might churn out less than educated future members of society. It's next, right here on MidPoint.